want to welcome all of you here. One of the things I wanted to talk about, there's a bunch of different things you always talk about at clinics and you see, and one of them, is drills and all that kind of stuff. And I've been doing a lot of recently. Something I've been doing is going to local and some far away clubs or high schools or youth organizations. And one of the things I'm finding that they're in the question and answer period is, how do you run practice? How do you plan practice? How do you do that? I didn't think that was something a lot of coaches would want to know, and I'm beginning to find I'm spending more time on that at what I call coach development seminars that I put on. And it's not sexy, it's not great, and I'm trying to get it better and better. I'm not sure it's awesome yet, but one of the things, I coached college for 20 years. We used to spend 2 to 3 hours planning practice. We would talk in the morning, then we'd go do our things, and we'd come back at 1 o'clock or 12 to eat lunch and talk how we're going to plan practice. And there'd be some great debates on how to catch the ball, where do you stand. We had long meetings, again, 2 to 3 hours on planning practice. When I got out of the college routine, I went to a high school. I knew as an assistant principal, I knew I wasn't going to have the luxury of taking 2 to 3 hours to plan practice. I also knew that if a student got in, I was a dean of students, I'm still a dean of students, if a kid got in trouble, I wasn't going to have any time to plan practice. So I called some guys that I knew that were in the high school coaching, and I said, how do you do this? And we went over a couple different things. One is preparation equals confidence. And I'm not a big reader, but I did read John Wooden's book years ago, and I never thought that, but I remember when I went from college to high school, and the comments parents said, as your kids look, I think this whole give them confidence thing is blown out of proportion. My response, my parents told me, you don't give my kid any confidence. And I said, well, I would have confidence in him if he could catch and throw. So it's sort of putting the cart in front of the horse. But I do believe that if you're prepared, you can do a better job of you being more confident. And then if you're prepared, your team's prepared, your team will be more confident. I was with a bunch of guys last week talking about defense, and one guy was way off the wall, different than some of us. And he asked, what do you think of that? I said, I wouldn't do that. But if you believe in it and you're sound in your teaching, you and your kids will be confident in it. That's what's important. So I think if you're prepared, you'll have a lot more confidence in it. What I did as a high school coach, and I do now that I'm out of the high school and I'm coaching youth, I'm sort of going backwards. I'm going from college to high school to youth. My friends make fun of me that pretty soon I'll have a bunch of moms running around pregnant with lacrosse sticks for kids. But I think you have to do practice the night before. I don't think if you're a businessman or you're a teacher, if you're a teacher, maybe you have a planning period, you can do it then. But if you're not a coach, you're not doing it full time, I believe you have to do it the night before. And that raises some other issues and situations you have to cover. I'll cover a few bit. But I think you need to prepare the night before. What I always do is I take a yellow pad and I write down our weaknesses. And then I have to pare that down. Because you can't address everything that you're weak at in one practice. Now, one of the things that I have done to my coaching staff before is ask them to prepare practice for the first 2 weeks. Prepare practice. If you're a defensive coach, you're an offensive coach, I want you to prepare practice for the first 2 weeks. Then meet and talk about it. I remember one year, and I probably should do it more often, I left this clinic and I had the first week of practices done. Just about done. Because we wanted to change some things we were doing. We wanted to be a much more up and down team. And I went to all the lectures on transition offense that year. Everything I could go to transition offense, and I wanted to change what we do. So we did much more of that earlier to set the tone for our team. That's who we're going to be. because we had not been that, and to wait 2 or 3 weeks would have been a mistake. So write down what your weaknesses are. Write down if you're in the part of your season where you're preparing for games, what are the preparations you need to do for your opponent? And then reduce those 2 lists to the most important. Reduce it down to a manageable number, like 2 and 3 things. I think that's about a realistic, manageable number. Then determine what ways you can address those things. How can you practice the weaknesses and the things that you want to develop? And then make sure there's progression. So if we're weak at clearing and we're struggling clearing, our stick work is going to be about clearing. Our small group work is going to address clearing. And then we'll get to the full field thing. So if you have a weakness that's the team concept, you can work on that individually. Then you can work on it with your group, whether it's attackmen, middies, defense, or defense and middies and attacking middies, and then work on it with the team concept. If you're telling your team you're weak at something and they need to improve something, and you're only practicing it for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, I don't think they buy into what you're saying. I don't think they buy into it. You're not saying that it's a great weakness if you're only addressing it for 10 or 15 minutes. But if you're all of a sudden, you're telling them in your pre-practice talk, our clearing game must be better. And an hour and a half later, you start doing clearing. There's a disconnect. What I would do is, we have weakness in clearing. Okay, go your groups. We're going to work on clearing right now. Whether it's small group or big group. And then reevaluate. Once you start doing that, reevaluating all those things, reevaluate the next day when you get to school or you get the emails that the guy you really want to work on or is sick or your practice gets canceled. You have to, at the high school level, you have to prepare for that. I had a rule that you have to let me know by 10 o'clock in the morning if you're not coming to practice. Nothing irritates me more to spend all that time the night before, change the practice that day, and then get to practice and 1 or 2 or 3 kids aren't there. Now your practice is gone. All the time and energy you put in to help your team is gone. And I wouldn't address the kid that he put you behind the 8 ball. He put his team behind the 8 ball. The team is going to suffer because you couldn't communicate to your coach you weren't going to be there.